All right, we're live. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. Here with Thomas Demiranda from Yugo, formerly Campus Advantage, one of the sales leaders over there in running the organization. In addition to a couple of other joint ventures that peel out of that whole organization, we can discuss that a little bit more. As every time we do this show, all the comments are always exceptionally valuable. So you have a chance to interact, ask us questions, or kind of add feedback to our conversation. Please jump in. It's super valuable. Makes it much more interactive and more engaging. And then, of course, we get to answer questions in real time. So as everybody knows, Getting to Hell Yes is about conversations around how we can drive faster. Ultimately, the outcomes drive faster sales for our customers and our stakeholders. And the idea is that trying to find out people who are seeking for help for their solutions versus trying to persuade people and get people kind of to buy. It's a whole lot more listening, a whole lot less talking. The challenge that Getting to Hell Yes has is that approach is that you got to find people who are looking for help, and what kind of help are they looking for, and you have to match your services to their decision making criteria. And sometimes finding those people is a little bit hard. So a lot of the conversations we have is about how do we begin to attract and find those kinds of buyers so we can be in a position to help them appropriately. As always, it's brought to you by IRCX. IRCX is remote maintenance software for property management. Helps you take a look at the problem before you dispatch a trip or a visit, and also helps you digitize all of your inspections. And as always, we kick it off with an intro from Thomas and your background, and then ultimately, Thomas, what is the problems you solve at Yugo, and then maybe a little bit of a headline on the transaction. It's Campus Advantage.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, Guillermo, for hosting today and inviting me to the show. I know my bud Dan was here maybe a few weeks ago, and I joined that one. So always great conversation, and feel really blessed and lucky to work in this industry and to talk to people like you and others. I'm Thomas Demiranda, Chief Sales Officer here at Yugo U.S, formerly Campus Advantage. And so I guess I'll just start with that. We've had conversations the past few months. And really what really transpired was that Yugo was looking for a partner in the United States to fast growth their company here. So they already had 40 properties. Today we're at 90, and we're fast tracking to some more. But they are a global company. So global student housing brand is what we like to call it. And so what we thought was now we have this global reach with local expertise to be able to really solve some real problems in student housing in a very different and maybe even disruptive ways. As far as for me, I've been in sales my whole life really, but I would say maybe my adult life since 2012. So about 13, 14 years. I love your intro about, solving problems for clients instead of persuading them. I've been in transactional sales before. I've been in the one call close type of deals before. And today it's more, where can I solve a problem for you? So it's more consultative. And so I really got into, student housing multifamily by accident, which I think is majority of people, right, in this space. You don't really think when you graduate college that you're going to go work in the world of student housing or even multifamily. But through a network of someone I knew in the past at Catalyst, which was a company of Campus Advantage and now a company of Yugo, I was hired to drive the multifamily side of the business for the Catalyst, which is a full service marketing agency. And so that's how I got my first intro into student housing and multifamily was through Catalyst. And now I'm here. 2 years ago, Mike Peter asked me to join the executive team of then Campus Advantage to be the chief sales officer. So now I run revenue for Catalyst, for Centricity, which is our back office support services for property owners who are trying to grow and scale and have stability by serving them property accounting and full HR and payroll. And then managing the beds side of the business and growing that under the Yugo banner. Guillermo, and I think you're muted. Just
I was. Thank you. I appreciate that. bouncing it off in a bit of a lobby here. So thank you. So for everyone, the problem in property management is managing the assets. So tell me about student housing. So the problem to be solved in student housing is a bit different than what's to be solved in conventional or affordable and other subverticals. Like how is student different, and then why is Yugo different than what's out there?
Yeah, I mean, for multifamily, it's year-round leasing, right? So it starts at the very basic. I'm not saying anything that's rocket science, but student housing, it's just the same lease cycle. And so, you're leasing properties up the moment that they get full, right after turn. And so, for some markets, that could be September 1st. Some markets October 1st, but you're already pre-leasing for the next season, which would be, for next season, fall 2026. And so, there are challenges. You're trying to sell to a student every year. You only get 4 years, maybe 2. With certain students. And so there's a challenge in that you're having to sell every year. I would say the other great difference is student housing is just ahead, I believe, in multifamily, and just the way that they advertise, the way that they present marketing materials, the way that they really try to sell amenities in the space is a lot different than multifamily. And there's just a lot of competition. There really is. Property management is not for the faint of heart. And so, you're trying to constantly make sure that, the client is satisfied, you're hitting your NOI. And then there's a whole people part that's maybe the most important part of this whole thing is not only the client that you're dealing with, but the residents that you're selling into and making sure that they're satisfied. And then the folks that are on your team, right? Think about it. You have a leasing professional, a student walks in, and that leasing professional right then and there is in charge of maybe a $30 million asset, right? The first experience that a resident has when they walk into a door is the leasing professional. And we're telling them, hey, you're the front of the spear of being able to share what this great community, this great space property has. And so, property management is just not easy, but you have to be great at it. And so from Yugo's perspective, and this is where this disruption really comes in. I think there's a lot of great operators out there, but they're operators. That's what they would name themselves, third-party manager. I think where the disruption comes from us is we are the first student global brand. And so in Europe right now, Yugo has over 120 spaces, is what they like to call properties, but they're a brand. And so if somebody goes to Paris and they're looking to go to the university there, they go to yugo.com/Paris, and then they look at the properties that they have in Paris. Or if it's in London, they're looking at the properties that are in London. That's the disruption we're going to bring here. And hopefully in the next 5-10 years, you're going to see that when a student is looking in Austin or Nashville or Tuscaloosa, they'll be able to recognize the Yugo brand. And just like you would go to a Marriott, in any of the cities you visit, you search by that city and you find the spaces that are there. That's what we're trying to change. And so we're changing the conversation from, just third-party management to actually a brand that is sustainable and that people outside of this industry are going to be able to recognize.
And a brand defines the experience and expectations, right? Versus just taking orders, right? And putting heads in beds kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when you think about that differentiation, who's looking for that differentiation? So, I mean, for context, obviously campus, the property ownership is a competitive space. There's lots of properties around. It's not just owned by the academic institutions. There's also, individuals. And then you've got obviously the competition for the students every single academic year to bring them in. Like you mentioned, you're leasing them a year ahead. You've often got parents that are part of the decision-making process. And those parents can have an influence on what's being leased and not leased, et cetera. I mean, I know there's a lot of influence that comes from the student, but ultimately there's someone else is writing the check. That makes it a little bit different. So then how is the, and you can speak to, I mean, obviously Campus Advantage was doing things well to the point that it became an acquisition target for Yugo. So how is that, I don't know if you can speak to the Yugo side of things or speak to the legacy Campus Advantage way of doing things, but really is, how did you guys get to be so strong and be so different for all those different stakeholders? Like you've got the property owners, You've got maybe the academic institutions if you're doing it for them, and then you've got also the students that you're putting inside these, that you're delivering experience to. And it really is also, on top of all of that, it's one of those also life-defining experiences that it might be the first time you left home. So all the things all create a bit of a mix that's much different than conventionally, hey, I'm moving into Boston and I got to find an apartment.
Yeah, it all starts with the student. It really does. If you provide the student-centric experience, then I think everything else follows. Like you said, it's a once in a lifetime experience. I remember, being a freshman at UMass when I went to school and then ended up playing a little bit of soccer there. But just how excited you get on your first day in orientation. I could still remember just being this young, skinny kid, going to school. And so at the heart of property management is we take care of the students. And so I think that's actually one of the things that really aligned so well as we were talking about, this merger and this acquisition of Campus Advantage, is how both companies just value students. And so from a Campus Advantage standpoint, Dan, who you had, a couple of weeks ago, created the Resident Life program, which was all about empowering the students, training students, educating the students. Because even as parents, I don't have an older kid yet. My kids are younger, but I can imagine, talking to others is, you also want to trust, right? You want to trust the people that are going to be taking in your kids. And so you're not only selling the students, you're selling to the parents of like, hey, is this going to be a safe place? This is going to be a place where they're going to have great experiences. What value does this bring to my child? And so from a Campus Advantage, that's always been the core is the student. Is how, if we can satisfy the student and provide them a great experience, then everything else will follow, right? And it's the same for Yugo. I mean, they have incredible live your best life kind of initiative that's on well-being, career development, sustainability, and community building. A third of their workforce is students. And so that just speaks to kind of how they think about and how we think about first of all, the students that we have today in our properties could be future Yugo employees. And we have a learning and development program that fast tracks that. And so we're giving them opportunities. We're giving them internships. We're hosting events. Last year alone, I think it was 6,000 events in the different communities that we have about learning and development. And so I think it's an all-in-one experience, but it does have to start with the student, because no capital partner, no owner is going to work with you if you don't have the metrics to show that you're providing a great experience. From Campus Advantage in 2025 alone, we've had a 41% renewal. That number to me is the most important number you can have, is you have 41% of students saying they're coming back to renew with you, which in student housing is huge. Anything over 35% is exceptional. I know in multifamily, it's a lot different because you sign 2-3 year contracts, but in student housing, you're selling again every single year.
And they have an option to move every single year. So there's a bit of like, just a little bit, a little less friction in terms of moving. They have less stuff. They're moving into places that have furniture in them. So it's like, and moving is a pain in the butt. And so all that stuff is kind of like, you've got to conquer that every single year when you get that renewal rate for the students.
Yep. And it's furnished, right? Like these places are furnished. So it's not like multifamily where, most of the places aren't furnished. And so if you want to move for a rate or anything like that, and the student housing market is very competitive. There's a lot of new developments coming in left and right. And, and that's great for competition. That's great for the student experience. That's great for the amenities. I look at some of these communities. I think of Yugo Waterloo, which is right in my backyard. This is not a fake, screen. Westlake in Austin, about 5 miles, west of downtown and about 7 miles from our property. They have great amenities. You got resort style pool, like infinity pool, like things I'd never lived in, but that's the type of amenities that students have today, and golf simulators and all these different things. And so we're trying to provide a full experience for students, not only to feel comfortable where they can study and focus on their studies, but then also build the best relationships that they have, and then maybe have some learning and development there. And maybe even, if they'd like, have an option to pursue a career in student housing. That's what we're trying to provide.
And so, I mean, given you guys have kind of obviously two parts of the customer side, the ownerships that you're seeking to acquire, right, for properties to manage in addition to the students that you're to. So maybe we can start with the owner side. So how do you find a good, like what's a good owner target for you? Given how you describe, experience, all those things, that's what you guys promise to your residents. How do you find owners that are seeking that similar outcome?
Yeah, I think we, like-minded mindset, but I think most owners are really looking for results, and you just can't, you can't beat around that, as far as what they're looking for. And so for us, like I said at the beginning, we're really trying to disrupt, right? And so what we're doing is something completely different than what's been done in the market. And so there's both one education, but secondly, kind of proving to them what we can do and what we've done in the past. I think the best owners is one that first acknowledges that what they're doing is not working, right? And then secondly, if you've done your job as far as providing kind of a good, painting the big picture to them, is you're telling them how you're going to solve it. And so for me, Mike Peters, CEO of Yugo U.S. and the one who founded Cancer Advantage, he always said that property management is actually really very simple. And I love the way that he paints that picture. Is you make a plan, you lease the asset, you collect the rent, you preserve the asset, and you communicate to the client. And so if you do those 5 things, you'll be successful in managing communities. Now, that's oversimplifying, but that's what it is. Those 5 things that you have to do consistently. And so we look at, as far as our strategy, and I don't want to give too much away, but man, if you look at Ann Arbor, if you look at Tallahassee, if you look at Gainesville, Knoxville, Austin, if the market is saying that it's 95% occupied, and you have an ownership group that has 5 properties or 2 properties, and they're like at 82 or 84, I ask the question, why is that? Why? Tell me why your community is there, because all of your competitors with similar amenities, similar rent pricing, similar unit mixes are 14, 15% ahead. And so there's something broken. And so once they can admit that, then we can kind of go through the conversation of like, well, let's see how we can help you. And so I think that's where it starts, is understanding, what we're doing right now is not working. And then I take them through the journey of like, okay, well, let me show you how we've done things. And here are also the case studies to prove that out.
You spoke a bit about disruption earlier a couple of times. You dripped on us. What, in your mind, without again disclosing, but like what needs to be disrupted?
I think the way that we manage communities today, and the way that the market perceives managers today. And so I think we have to give just so much more value to the students and so much more value to the client. And so from a student perspective, we need to keep enhancing that resident experience, and we need to keep them at the heart of what we do. And then for the client, is we're not just managing a property and just increasing NOI. What we're trying to do is create asset value. And so if I tell a client, hey, in 5 years, I'm going to provide this amount of asset value, would that be something that you'd be happy with? And so through our brand and through what we've been doing outside of the US, we've been able to prove that out, that when you go on under a Yugo kind of umbrella and we manage your bed, we can increase your asset value by X. That's what we're bringing to the US. And we're going to have tangible results to show you, look, these are the properties that we've had. They started at 20 mil or 60 mil. After 3-5 years, this is what they got to, all because of our operations and the way that our brand enhanced your property. And so that's the disruptive part, because now everything's about low management fees. Everything's about, who can, provide the lowest property insurance. And there's not really the core of the student in that anymore, right? Of that resident experience. And then also saying, we're coming in as a brand, and our brand is going to elevate your community. And that's what we're trying to do.
And specifically around the student, because the student it's different enough that there's, and it's a young, community, there's engagement, there's all those things that you can actually activate the brand around that creates that difference, to that asset owner. That asset owner is going to see, and depending how they're structured with their LPs and GPs, they can start participating, and maybe if the refinance comes around, they can start taking money off the table, and then now they're playing with house money.
And I haven't even touched on the partnerships that we have globally. That
Mhm.
this is the difference with Yugo today and other companies. We have partnership with Red Bull and Formula One, and so we have students.com, which is one of our companies there. We're going to have Yugo on there, and so we have a brand that partners with other brands. We have Perplexity Pro that we today share with students, at a free cost when they sign a lease. We have all of these partnerships, Visa, Cash App. That is not something you hear today in the student market, that
Right.
property management companies are enhancing a student resident experience through that. I mean, last year, I think it was either Paris or Madrid. We had the director of marketing for Red Bull host an event at one of the properties, and they were able to speak directly to the students. These are the kind of things that elevate the resident experience that management companies today aren't privy to, and that we're going to start doing also here in the U.S. And that's a completely different conversation than what's been had the last few years.
I mean, I just can imagine, like, even if you're a marketing student and all of a sudden your building is bringing this speaker to the table, like, that's just juice. Like, you can't avoid not talking about that. It's impossible.
And if the residents are locked in, and if future residents are like, I want to go live at a Yugo community because I can see all of this value that I get from living there, all of this exposure, all of this opportunity to grow as a student, to maybe grow in my career, to maybe have an internship. That's what we're bringing to the table. But it all starts with the student.
It's funny. So I'm on Austin now, right now as well, and staying in the Domain. And walking around here, I'm trying. There's a ton of apartments in this space, right?
Yep.
And I'm trying to see into your comment on brand. Like, I'm doing a few walk-ins and walked into a UDR building, Greystar building, and I'm like, who? I haven't gotten the sense of brand from like the buildings that are here. It's an interesting experience. I'm staring in at VRBO, so I'm actually in one of the apartment complexes, and it's interesting to kind of like seek out what brand looks and feels like, because it's not clearly articulated at the masthead or at the entryway. It's more about the property, but not the brand. The brand is subtext. You might find out the brand by getting someone's business card, but you won't actually find out the brand anywhere else.
No.
And so is that something, is that an opportunity for, brand isn't secret sauce. It's a strategy, right? Yeah. And so is that like, would we expect to see a Yugo branded buildings, the masthead kind of thing? Or is it still going to be hidden behind and people need to know about? Like, maybe you're just guessing right now, but how do you guys imagine it at this point?
Yeah, I mean, today we have 40 communities that are strictly branded, right? With Yugo. And so I think the long-term plan as we educate the market is that way will be the best way. But as we partner with different capital groups and different ownership groups, we're also aware of where the student housing market is today. And so that's not something that we're going to force, but slowly it's going to be something that we're going to suggest, and we're going to have a lot of metrics in the US and KPIs that we'll be able to prove that out. I think that's where we're headed, where, when you step into a Marriott, you know what to expect. When you step in, if you go downtown on 2nd Street where Interface, student housing is every year, you know what it feels like to step into a JW. That's what we're providing for residents when they step into a Yugo community, is they know what to expect. Because that's what a brand is all about, is like what you see online and the expectations that you have hopefully gets met at the door when you go in it, and that experience is consistent all around.
Yeah. And it becomes something that's, I think I got to credit to the brand name. The brand name is something that is kind of feels on trend, feels campusy, feels like it's something that's easy to remember and share. And that's something that can translate really well into an articulation of what to expect. And it can kind of attach those emotional outcomes to that particular word. And that word can mean something more than just the 4 letters, right?
Yeah. When you think of Yugo, you think of student housing. That's the goal, right? That's
yeah. You see, like, when you take a look at the pursuit of kind of more properties, like there's with a new brand out there, and to your comment earlier, right, in terms of like, if the market is standing around 94%, and this particular owner has, our property owner has like 84, 86%, there's obviously a gap. So then now with this brand in place, does it guys enable you guys to go at the market a little bit differently than you did before?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we already have case studies. When you combine both companies together, the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about that is you have double the case studies of what you've done in
Right.
the past. But now we're under a really, really strong brand. And so um, there's been just so many management changes, especially with different properties. If you look at, they'll have a management
Mhm.
change every year. Like something's not working. Something is broken and it has to be fixed. And it's not just, looking at performas and for sure you still have to do those things, but it's really the way that you position the asset. And there's just so many different ways that you can do that today the US market, everybody's still in the kind of an old school way. And I
Mhm.
think that through Yugo, the disruption is we're going to bring so much brand value and we're going to bring so much things that are outside of this US student housing box that there is right
Mhm.
now that people are kind of going to be blown away, right? Like just think about, just as I mentioned, like these partnerships that we already have that we're bringing in the US, whether it's through Red Bull or through Perplexity and through others that we're working through. That's not something that's never happened here, really. We talk about
Yeah.
pizza party on Wednesday. We talk about a pool party, and it's just
Yeah.
like that. Everybody does the same thing, right? It's just spun a little bit different. But now you can host events, right? Like if you can have a Formula One event at Yugo U.S, right? And here on October 18th, on that weekend where the Grand Prix is
Yeah.
here, that's value for the student. Oh man,
Oh
do I
yeah.
maybe the driver, or do I get to meet the pit crew? Do I get to, that kind of stuff is a little bit different. And now you have a brand that stands out, and it's not just an operating company anymore. It's a full
Mhm.
student housing brand. That's why we say we're the first student housing brand in the industry, because that's already
When I think
happened.
about it, and when I think about that resident, the student, that population is really mobilizes around brand, maybe more so than other populations, right? And as a parent, you may not be like, you are seeking that safety in those 4 or 5 years, and that safety is something that you want to kind of invest in. So I completely get the alignment and the differentiation factor from a buyer perspective. I've got 2 kids in post-secondary right now, and my oldest is in Pennsylvania, my daughter's in Ontario, Southern Ontario. My oldest is in a property management run building. My daughter's in the house, right? And it was kind of funny in that to make the decision on moving into the property was pretty easy. It was just like sign it up for 4 boys, go for it. To move into a house, we of course had to find the house. We had to go, and there's like Zoom calls, like literally, I swear to God, six gals all got together to get in a house, and they want to get a house together. So there's Zoom calls of like 12 parents and 6 girls. We had like Zoom calls of like 18 people on a rental decision. It was almost comical because
Yeah.
that's how invested everybody was in the conversation. You got the girls who have gone out there and found, pitching it to the parents, and every parent has got a decision perspective on it. I can just imagine that had there been a brand conversation, then it's a whole lot safer for everyone to kind of go, just check it and go. Because like
There's
we just,
expectation.
it's
It's an expectation.
yeah, and it's a bit, everyone's going through a bit of a scary transition, both the student and the parent, all at the same time. That I totally attach myself to the strategy, because I would prefer to buy that way, you know,
Yeah.
as
That's
a
the way I'm
parent.
going to be buying. I mean, my girls are 4 and 6, and so by the time
There you
they're 18,
go.
that conversation will be had, and it will be the way that we're talking about today. They're going to shop from a brand, and it's not just going to be from an operator. And those who can have that, which there aren't really any except for us today.
Mhm.
That's how you're going to differentiate yourself from your competition, because no student knows what a Gray Star property is or any other,
Right.
and I say Gray Star because they're the largest, right? And so, most people would probably know them, but if you're outside of the industry, you don't know operating names. You just don't. And so, what if you?
Yeah, they might not. There's a good chance they don't know they're renting from the Gray Star property.
Yeah, there's a great chance. Exactly. Now, if you can
Right.
go and you start marketing outside of the industry, hey,
Hmm.
there's this brand. Wait, is that the brand I saw in the Formula One car? Wait, is that the brand that I saw like a little PR thing with Perplexity? Is that the brand? Now you're like, wait, what is this? And now you're already educating them before they even become a student or before they either
Right.
enter your property. And so now when they are going to look, or even the parents themselves see this, right? Now they're like, hey,
Hmm.
let's go try that Yugo.com. Let's go to Yugo.com and see if they have a community there in Knoxville or in Ann Arbor or anywhere else. And
Hmm.
so that's what we're trying to change. That's the conversation we're trying to bring.
How did it get so like brand has been around forever, right? And in terms of consumer preference, how, why why is brand not a strategic lever across the entire industry?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I have my thoughts, and I'm not going to say that they're these are opinions. I'm not going to say that I'm
Yeah,
not
their opinions.
like they're facts. I but coming from working in marketing and pitching marketing to capital groups and ownership groups and developers, I could just tell you from that experience, and so I do have a real experiences of why certain people think. Uh, Certain people just don't value brands, and that's I'm saying from
Mhm.
like an ownership side. There are some, and those that do really stand apart from like at least their communities being branded a certain way, or the
Mhm.
look and feel of materials, or their logo, their name. You can tell that there's a lot of thought to it, but I just think that today it's not something that people really know how to value. And to be
Mhm.
honest, I don't think marketers have really done a great job in this industry of providing, the value that brand shows from a revenue standpoint. And so you
Mhm.
have to pitch to a client, not just what brand awareness does and what it enhances from it, obviously asset value, but an NOI. If you can show that, hey, your property, because it's associated with Yugo, now the NOI increases by 10%. Well, that's a conversation starter right there, right? Like
Mhm.
I just don't think that most companies have been able to make that assumption. But it's also the way that you're set up organizationally. It's a hard thing for you to do just out of nowhere. You have to start your company and really put brand top of mind. And I
Mhm.
can tell you, Yugo, from what I've learned from them, that's always been one of the most important things. Is kind of how do we expand the brand? How do we show the brand to everyone else? And so that we can change the conversation. And so I just think we're in an industry, and especially multifamily. I would say student housing still ahead on the brand
Mhm.
part. Multifamily is
Mhm.
even more behind. And
Well, the
I just
interesting thing about brand, if you go borrow from hospitality, is that in
yes,
order to deliver on a brand, you have to have centralized playbooks. Like, and I think that that's part of what is maybe we're finally at a point now that there's a revenue reconciliation with the movement to actually standardize everything. Centralization is obviously a big word. It's got a
yep,
lot of meat in it right now, but like even if you're to standardize the standard operating procedures for resident, if you go and you walk into a Four Seasons hotel, it is very prescribed how you were greeted, right? And that starts to define the experience that you begin to consume. And they have obviously a delta in sort of in the assets that they deliver and the management and returns they deliver there. And so like maybe we're finally at a point now that we're able to take this standardization and align that to an NOI outcome in a way that it helps drive differentiation in the market. Because you can't, like we talked throughout around the Yugo experience, that experience is going to be more prescribed than it was before because it has to collectively deliver on the brand promise, what the brand
yep.
stands for. And so that's going to be an operational change that's, for the good. But I'm curious, like when I think about the market and this there is a movement to begin to incorporate brand into property management, but that doesn't come for free.
No,
You've got to be willing to change the way you operate to deliver that brand promise and be unwilling to tolerate variability from that brand. And so I find that it's not just, this isn't a logo.
Yeah.
This is a way to operate. And so
Yeah.
I think that's maybe a little bit lost in a lot of the energy around brand, is that brand means that you're operating as a standardized entity. You're walking in lockstep. Everything is consistently delivered, because that's what we're buying as buyers. That's the promise that I'm seeking to pay more for, is that consistency. And so I find it, and more and more I talk to folks in the market, like, and we've read probably read a lot about centralization, standardization, and even in career paths, like all of that has been very ad hoc, property by property,
Yeah.
or individually initiated rather than collectively initiated. And so it's interesting to see how that feels. So how do you feel that's going to convert in terms of an execution perspective? Like, that's before you, presumably.
Yeah. Are you talking about from the operations standpoint?
Yeah, operations. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you join Yugo, you know that you're joining a team that cares about their brand, and there's a brand promise to it. And so I think a brand is the expectation that people have when they see your brand, when they feel your brand, when they experience your brand. And so somebody walks in, like I was saying earlier, into a Yugo community. If you've done a good job about your brand, hopefully that translate into the way that leasing professional now greets them, has them being welcome into a tour and showing them kind of what the amenities are, what the experience is, but it's lock and step with operations, right? And so if students is at the heart of kind of, what we do, I think that our people on the ground, as far as our operational team, is essential to how we execute. Absolutely essential.
Yep.
This is for every company. Like I said, you have folks that are the tip of the spear, and they're the first person that a student sees. And so in turn, when you have all these kids moving in, you have this team of 5, 10, 15 people that are holding down this 30, 50, $60 million asset down. It's a huge undertaking. And so you have to marry both operations with the brand promise. And so there has to be consistent training, clear KPIs, clear goals, clear standards on how you're operating. But you said something earlier, like you have to believe in what you're doing, and you have to believe in your brand. And so I think the reason why many companies haven't taken that approach is just they don't value it, right? There's other things that they value over the brand. And it is a disruptive thought, right? Like, to think that in student housing, you can actually build a brand and that will attract people. I mean, on our Yugo website, we get 500,000 searches, right? Like, that's a lot of searches for Yugo. Like, that's most companies won't get that. What they will get is apartments near me, apartments in downtown Austin, apartments in downtown, those keywords for just the specific thing that they're looking for. But to say there's 500,000 searches just for the word Yugo, or Yugo student housing, or something like that, that's powerful, and that's what we're trying to bring into the U.S. That awareness that will change the conversation here immediately.
Very interesting. I think there's something also to consider, that there's a certain vulnerability by positioning yourself in a brand promise. Like in other places, they don't make a brand promise, so it's okay to miss the target.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as long as you collect the rent and don't dent the walls, hey, we're good, right? But when you're committing to a brand promise, there's vulnerability in there that is related to your confidence in delivery, right? And I think that's a part of what a lot of the gap that we're filling in the market right now is that there's and this isn't just student. I think I've seen this across all different verticals. Is like there's a lack of confidence in execution, and so, and I don't have the answer for that, or why or where or how, but I just am sensing that there's the more conversations I have, the deeper we go, the people are recognizing that the way things have worked in the past are no longer working any longer, and they probably aren't going to work ever again that way. And so there's a realization that we've got to change the way we're doing things wholeheartedly, and it's kind of scary for a lot of people. I mean, you guys have taken it and positioned it, and it's not just, but the Yugo side of things. They're recognizing that standardized operations aligns to a value proposition that can be attractive for both residents and for building owners, right?
Yeah.
But everyone else is kind of still stuck in the. I don't feel comfortable with the fact that standardized operations is something we have to adopt. And so there's a bit of pushback into how we do things, right? Like there still is people that are writing work orders on pieces of paper,
Yes.
reading it in a unit, right? Like I've talked to people more frequent than infrequent, that the standard turn process is they write down that it has been turned on a sticky note and they put it inside the unit, right? Like that's not unusual. And I'm not suggesting that technology is the answer for everything. But in order for you to put something in a technology, you got to standardize it. You got to have some sort of vision to what consistency looks like, and consistency has to be matched to where you're going to go. So I think what's enlightening in this conversation, I hope everyone catches it, is that the standardization of operations allows you to have a brand. If you do not standardize operations, then you're misrepresenting what's possible, and that's a trap.
It's a trap. I mean, one of our shared values here at Yugo is pioneering. Innovation drives everything we do. And so everything we've talked about today, it's that value of we're going to drive the ship. We're going to be the lead front runners. We're going to try things. And most of the time it'll succeed, but sometimes it'll fail. But we're going to try it because we just don't believe that the status quo is the answer of how we do things. And so we'll try AI tools. We'll try centralization. We'll try different things to make both the resident experience better, but both the client experience better, and for also the teams that work on site. But we're not just going to have the status quo. And I think this industry has just worked under that kind of status quo way, just because it has worked before in the past. And it's just getting a lot more competitive. And when it gets a lot more competitive, and when markets aren't moving, when interest rates are high, when refinances aren't happening as much as they used to, well, now you're kind of stuck. If you're a smaller operator, if you're not changing the way you do things, now you maybe have to sell your assets. Maybe now you have to white label. Maybe, now you have to get acquired, or all of these different things. And so I think that in the next 5-10 years, I keep saying we're going to really see more consolidation in this space, because you're really going to have to be excellent. You're going to really have to be excellent in the way that you give resident experience and in the way that you operate your communities.
That's a really, really great bullet point, is on that, really be excellent. I don't have enough history in this industry to have an opinion of whether it has been excellent or not, but the opportunity and the gap between those that are high performers and those that are like even second quartile, it's pretty significant. And so and I think it's also, to your point, it's not just the resident and the owner, it's also like the staff that are working at these places. Like they're being asked to make it up on the fly, and that's a lot of stress. Whereas like if you've got a situation where you can begin to rely on a playbook, then those decisions have already been made for you. The right decision is right before you on a page, and what you've been trained to do that. And so that takes a lot of stress off of me as a line worker, an individual contributor, because now I can go just follow the playbook. That makes for better employment experience,
And Guillermo, there's the opportunity is so big, right? Like the leading operator and managed beds in this space, has 120,000 beds. There's 2.8 million beds in the U.S. And so think about it. If you add the top 10, you barely get to 1 million. And so there's a lot of smaller operators across the country managing beds. And so the opportunity to be, hey, we're going to grow this thing out, and we're really going to show, the U.S. what a brand looks like, and what creating asset value, one, for the capital group, and then creating just resident value, right? Like your experience, how you feel when you walk into a Yugo property. What do you get out of it? Not just a bed that you can lay your head on, not just a furnished room, not just a infinity pool or a simulator. No, you get actual real life, tangible learning and development. And maybe you can have a chance to become an intern. Maybe you get a chance to go to a hosted event and talk to director of marketing from one of the best agencies in the U.S. Like, those type of things really create value for the resident, but it's not the type of events, or it's not the type of strategies from a branding perspective that you've really seen in this space. Yeah. And so that's what we're trying to bring here. And everyone will see soon kind of what we're talking about. And so that's what we're trying to disrupt a little bit. We're doing things that are more to hospitality, the way that they've done things, than the way the student housing has done things.
And, and it's kind of, point it up a bit here. Is it because you think that you have to go and win that resident every year? Like, is that competition drive that a little bit more than other industries, other verticals?
Every year, you gotta win that resident all over again. I mean, from the day one, when you have a move-in, every touch point is part of that resident experience, right? They come in the door, they're signing the lease. What's that experience like? What's touring like? What is, what does the property look like? Is it clean? Like, what when they moved in, if they have a problem, which every resident will, right? At some point, AC down or something. What's that downtime to get that fixed? What's the experience? What's the communication like? What's the marketing like? What are the events? I mean, for 9 months, every day you have a chance to resell to that resident. And depending on how you do, your scorecard is going to be determined, during that year. And so if you're not keeping up, if you're not communicating, if you're not giving that resident experience, well, what's going to happen is, because we know that developments in these top tier schools are every year there's new developments. What are they going to do? Well, I'll just jump over there to that community. It's giving me a discount.
Move anyways.
Yeah, I got to move anyways. It's furnished. I don't got a lot of stuff. They're giving all these concessions. They're giving, it's brand new, so I'll be the first one to live there. But if they have an experience, and at the end of the year they realize, man, I almost felt like I lived in a hotel. Like, there's a concierge type service here. Yeah, I know everybody at the front desk. They know me. They always respond promptly. I've been to some of their events. This is incredible. It adds incredible value to my life. I'm part of the learning and development. You know what? I'm in marketing. Maybe I'll intern for the Yugo team for marketing. Like, I've been able to do that. All these opportunities create kind of increased value for the student. And then on top of that, we just deliver operationally, right? So they're happy where they live at. I think the conversation changes then, because property management isn't for the faint of heart, like I said before. But you can really enhance the resident experience in many ways. And what we're thinking of is completely outside of the box of what the industry's been doing for the past 10, 15 years.
But I think what's comforting about it is you're not inventing something brand new. You're porting things over from other industries that have been there forever and ever and ever, and then applying it to. And I think that's, I'm seeing this over and over again in terms of gap closure on resident experience, talent experience, owner experience, like client experience. Like, the answers have all been done in other places, and it's about porting over the right ones and making them fit for this vertical. And because even the lessons, the metrics, all those things, they all exist. So in the story of not reinventing, of you're kind of like not reinventing, but reinventing at the same time, which is a very safe pace to play. This brand has proven itself out over and over again. Look at just publicly traded companies like Coca-Cola, Apple, goes on forever. The market capitalization of those firms versus the net book value of their assets, that gap is brand. Yeah. Right? Like, Coca-Cola is worth more than a competitive sugary drink company strictly because of the brand.
Just like Apple.
It's just like Apple. Right? It's not, the data's all there. So congratulations to your team and everybody at the Yugo side of things to acknowledge that and capitalize that, because the use a football term, the A gap is a mile wide. Yeah. You just got to get through it, right?
Yeah. And there's so many talented people here that, from a marketing perspective and the way that they've thought about how to position this, it's incredible. And so I think that, they'll continue to push the limit. And like you said, some things will work and some things won't. But the
Mhm.
beauty of it, you get to learn and then you get to adapt. And that's every conversation I have is, hey, what's working, what's not? Like I
Most
ask,
definitely.
what are your non-negotiables when selecting a group you want to partner with, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm asking those questions, like, what does success look like, a year from now, Guillermo? I have your 5 assets, we're managing it. I know what your NOI goal is, but what are you going to look at and be like, you know what? Hugo was the best choice I made the last 5 years. And these are the
That's
reasons why.
outstanding.
That is what
I go through a coaching program right now. One of the things they have is a question for your customers is like 3 years from now, if you look back at this moment, just how you described it, what will be the most important things that happened to you personally and professionally
Mhm.
because of the decision, because of this meeting we had today, right? And how
Yeah.
can I help you achieve those two things? And it's a real position of vulnerability. You can't ask that. Maybe you can't. Maybe you can or can't ask that in the first meeting. But ultimately, understanding that of the personal and professional outcomes that your buyer is seeking to achieve or your resident is seeking to achieve is something that is like enlightening. Because like if you go and ask people, I want a bed to sleep in, this semester. That's very different than what do you expect what do you expect to achieve out of your student experience over the next 48 months. It's a different
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't even
When you
talk
look,
about just the data insights that, our parent of companies have, of students.com and how much data insights we have
Mhm.
and how much we know about how students think and what really matters to them, right? Like we survey thousands of students every year globally to know, like, hey, what are the things that make you want to live at, a student property, a community, a space? Like,
Mhm.
what are those things? And so we're very much as an operating company, as a management company, as a marketing company, a data research company. We have all of that under this one brand because we're really trying to see how can we be and continue to be the best student housing brand there is. And that all
Mhm.
starts with understanding what are students looking for, why do they renew a lease, why don't they renew a lease, and what are the things that truly matter for them and frankly for their parents to really say, hey, I want to live here this year, I
Yeah,
want to live here next year. um,
yeah,
you said we're trying to every year earn that business.
very cool. A couple of last two questions here. So, looking back at yourself, your previous your career, or maybe somebody who's coming in to join, you go right away here. What's one bit of advice you'd give them to help them achieve success?
uh Man, just be a doer. Be a
All right.
doer. I think that, I don't like generalizing, but I do think that, I've seen so many that I just rolled up my sleeves when I first started in sales in general. I did anything and everything that was asked,
Mhm.
and just to prove myself every day. And I still do that. I never. And then the other piece is just don't ever think you've arrived. I really
Mhm.
think that's a very humbling thing to think about because you'll always chase excellence. I'm in the pursuit of excellence. My wife's like, you get so amped up about these things, like you're okay, you're fine. I'm like, no, I just want to continue to be better. I want to
Yeah.
push the limits of where can Thomas go, right? I hate talking third person, but where can I go? I want to see how far can I take this thing. And so I
Yeah.
think, like, whatever is given to you, give it all you got.
I love it.
And then,
Love it.
when you get the thing, don't think you've arrived. There's more. See
Mhm.
what else you could do with your talents. And I think
Yeah.
that,
There's an interesting analogy, right, about horizon. Right, the horizon is a flat line from your perspective, but as you go and pursue the horizon naturally keeps moving. And so the tough part is keeping yourself motivated because your target keeps moving because it's a horizon. But if you don't seek that horizon, you're never going to get there. So it's this ironic pursuit of excellence because the bar for excellence keeps going forward as you begin to learn more things about what being excellent feels like.
Yeah, and that's a work, perspective. I mean, I also have my personal faith and things that that my
Mhm.
contentment is stored in, and so, I don't conflate the two, saying like if I'm only excellent, that's where my happiness comes from. But I think from a
Right.
professional standpoint, um, that's the mindset I have. Is it's like I'm here, man. I'm 8, 10, 12 hours away from my kids. Like,
Mhm.
right? I'd rather be with them. So while I'm here, I'm going to do the thing that I'm called to do the
Make
best
it
I
count.
make it count, make every day count, because you have loved ones you're not seeing all the time. And you have to make sure that what you're doing is worth it.
It's worth it. It's funny. Where is it? Right here. We're sitting here. So I'm in Austin earlier. Here we go. So shit.
You had 20 minutes for me.
I know. I was on a napkin and I'd written this out. We were talking last night. I wrote it down. I can't find it. I got all the other napkins I wrote down.
Yeah.
But it was the give the best, never be. It was really smart. It was really smart, Boston. It was like the best that you have. Don't be, oh, whatever. The best of who you are is the best that you need to offer. And if you do that consistently, you're going to find that it's easier to live that because you're being authentic to yourself. And everyone, I've had a lot of conversations on this show about authenticity.
Yeah.
And being your best means that you understand who you are and driving towards that. So it's valuable. So appreciate you sharing that. Who should we talk to next? You were nominated by Dan, so that brought you up.
Yeah. No, I would say, just because I'm a sales guy, I want to maybe, kind of recommend another sales guy that
Do it.
And I really like what he does. Mike Wolber, who's a CSO at
Mike's at the department list. Mike. Mike's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I didn't see that one, but yeah, he's great. I always chat with him when I can, and so that was my first one. So I would have to think about who would be somebody else that I would.
Well, Mike's a great. I mean, in terms of the people to choose, he's definitely out there. Probably worth even having him on the show again as we kick into the fall season. The guy is a lightning bolt of energy and positivity just to keep it going. His piece of advice, which still sticks with me, was to think big.
Yeah.
And that completely resonates with who Mike is. So
you probably have had Tony Souza then too, right? From the Multifamily.
Yeah, I've had Tony. Yeah.
Speaking of brand, I mean, the man knows brand like no other.
That's his doctrine right now for sure. It's about helping everyone to brand. I know it's impressive. Well, those are still very good suggestions. I might have to poke your brain a little bit offline to kind of get some more ideas, but keep the train going.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Thomas. I appreciate it. I really appreciate your inputs, your time, and then everything you had to offer today. We haven't had a lot of conversations around brand in this show, and appreciate you guys how you're looking to capitalize on the gap in the market about consistency, about promise, about emotional conversion, because that is a lot of how we make decisions these days, and especially when you're doing it, as a buyer for your kids, right? So those emotional moments of consideration is something that we're looking to de-risk, and that comes from a brand promise, right?
We're very excited. Look, we couldn't be more excited about where we're at. I feel super blessed to be in this position to be kind of in charge of the revenue and be able to drive this thing forward with this new group, and everybody's culture just so aligned. And so, again, thank you so much for having me on your show, and I'll be watching along. So, cheers, everyone.
Right on. Thanks, Thomas. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Take care. That was awesome, man. Thank you.